Some of the most disappointing early season injuries for the Vols as Aaron Rodgers got knocked out of the game early. It was
First series.
First series, yes. It was, to me, very reminiscent of one Jerry Colquitt. Now, that opened the door for Peyton Manning, but at the time, if you remember, that football team was pretty loaded, and Colquitt was ready to take over, and the young quarterbacks, Brandon Stewart and Peyton Manning, were going to learn behind him. And now it seems as if the Jets will have to figure something out. But don't really care so much about the Jets. I'm just curious about early season injuries that you recall, Caleb, that seemingly could have or did derail the season. I would argue that the Colquitt injury happening was actually an okay thing. I know they could have fought for a red shirt. This is probably a little bit before your time, and they chose not to, a medical red shirt. And I know that he probably wasn't real happy about that, but it opened the door for Peyton Manning to get early experience and be a really good quarterback. So I would argue that actually, no offense to Jerry Colquitt, but that was actually probably a good thing for Tennessee's program. Am I crazy?
Well, by 1995, it would, yes, Peyton Manning was better. Like the Peyton Manning freshman to sophomore, I wasn't watching this time at this time. I was too young, but everything I've read, it seemed like the freshman to sophomore leap by Peyton Manning was just insane. And so I'm with you on that. But remember, Peyton Manning's plan was to redshirt with Brandon Stewart. They were going to redshirt together, and Todd Helton was there mainly just because Tennessee needed a backup to Jerry Colquitt. And then after Colquitt left in 94, it'd be Peyton or Brandon Peyton that would get the job in 95, and then they would rebuild. Not so sure, though. Because let's play this out in our head real quick. Peyton Manning is a redshirt freshman in 95. I think Peyton Manning stays all 4 years, maybe through 98. He didn't want to leave Tennessee. So it's possible that he stays as a fifth-year senior and starts for Tennessee in 1998 when T. Martin starts, at which point maybe T. Martin redshirts and starts in 99 and 2000. So the Colquitt injury could have just altered so many things going forward. I'm never going to say I don't necessarily always believe. I don't believe in accelerationist. I think that's what you call it, where like you create a negative where things get worse so they can get better. That's having been a student of history, I don't believe in accelerationism. I'll just say that. But I will say that, look, if Jerry Colquitt starts that year, Tennessee's going 11-1. I mean, they go 11-1 that year, and we don't know, as great as that 90s run was, that could have even done more wonders for them after that.
No, and some of the other ones, I'll tell you the two that I remember most. Okay, so I was at the game in 1990. That was the second game of the season when Chuck Webb was injured. And just so you know, with ACL injuries, if they say that the ACL, by the shifting test of the knee that you'll see, if they tell you that it's probably a torn ACL, they're right 99% of the time. Now, there are times where they can't get a good diagnosis, and they'll tell you that you have to do the MRI the next day, Caleb, which is usually the way it goes. I can remember driving or riding home with who I went to see the game with, and riding home, they said he's probably out for the season. You didn't used to hear, I guess it was John Ward who shared that, you didn't used to hear it that quickly. So you knew that it was bad. And I thought he was still one of the most talented running backs that I've ever seen. The other one that I remember distinctly is Jamal Lewis in 1998. But what did that do? That opened up the door for the Travises. Tennessee would have been better with Jamal Lewis. I'm not implying that he made them better somehow by being hurt. But I remember those two very distinctly. And you brought up one that had kind of slipped my mind a little bit back in 2002.
Yes, Kevin Burnett got hurt in the opener against Wyoming, and that really started a slew of injuries that just wrecked Tennessee for the year. That 2002 was probably the biggest mulligan that Philip Fulmer ever deserved, because I don't think I've ever seen a team get hit with the injury bug the way that did. And Kevin Burnett wasn't, as you knew, well, I remember because Kevin Simon then stepped in for Kevin Burnett, and Kevin Simon got hurt after that.
Yep.
And I don't know who had more hype. I believe Kevin Burnett had more hype than Kevin Simon. Fully healthy, I think Burnett was still the better player. You may know more about that than I would, but I think both of them fully healthy. Kevin Burnett was probably the better linebacker. But
I would take Burnett because of his explosiveness. You got to remember Kevin Simon had an ACL injury his last year in high school, so his knees
that's right.
were pretty beat up. So he was probably a shell of himself by the time that he was a regular season starter. So I would take Burnett. I think Burnett had a great career in the NFL. I will say this though, I thought Kevin Simon, if he's 100% healthy, is a great Mike linebacker for the foreseeable future in his career. We just never got to see that, Caleb, because he was injured before he even got there.
Yeah. And then another one, you're going to think I'm just defending Julie on this, but this was a bad luck situation. 2011, Tennessee at Florida. They're 2-0. Justin Hunter converts a third down and goes down on a non-contact injury. And remember, Tennessee's very thin that year. And their big advantage is Tyler Bray throwing to Justin Hunter and Derrick Rodgers. When Justin Hunter went down, that was going to derail Tennessee's season no matter what. I think if Justin Hunter stays healthy and Bray can stay healthy, there's a very good chance Tennessee maybe goes 8-4 that year rather than 5-7. And so that was just a real bad luck for Tennessee that year. But a lot of people would be happy about it because talk to Josh Ward, people wanted to see Dooley fail.
Yeah, and when we look back on big injuries, I think a lot of it is how you overcome them, and I mean that from a mental perspective as well. The '98 team wasn't dissuaded by their goals because of the Jamal Lewis injury, which I think is pretty phenomenal. They will admit that they were kind of taken aback, but they were also taken aback when the Travises hit the field and played well in Lewis's absence. So, yeah, I would say that is an incredibly important thing for any team. And Tennessee is one of those teams that has had to deal with that, and I give them kudos. Cooper Mays out, Keenan Pili out, and I think they've responded very well in both situations. The running game and pass protection has been good with Ollie Lane at center, and then with Keenan Pili out, Aaron Beasley has a fantastic game last week. So I think they've dealt with that. I think a lot of that is how you deal with it. And I think that has been pretty impressive by the Vols so far. Did they play great against Austin Peay? No, but I don't think that was the center or middle linebackers position.